The Berg River catchment is an important catchment in South Africa. It is located in the Western Cape province, north of the city of Cape Town. The Berg River starts at the French Hook and Drakensberg Mountains. It is approximately 290 kilometers in length and flows northwest through the towns of Paarl and Wellington to exit in Veldrift.
The Berg River is regionally and even provincially a very important river system for the Western Cape province because firstly it's quite a big river system for this area. It's situated close to Cape Town and it feeds one of the major water supply dams for Cape Town, the Berg River Dam. The bottom of the river, the estuary, is also nationally important actually in terms of its contribution to marine fisheries.
We got about 35 small-scale farmers in Goetewag area. Now we also depended on the river. Along the river, the Department of Agriculture has helped us building a weir where we can block the water so that the small-scale farmers can get water.
Berg River is a really important catchment for us as we've got a lot of suppliers within that area. Being a Western Cape business from origin, we've got a really strong relationship with a lot of the agricultural suppliers in this area, and we obviously want to work with them to make sure that we are looking after the catchments.
We are very reliant on the Berg River, and I cannot think that without the Berg River there will be no Paarl or Drakensberg. We're very passionate about the Berg River. I mean, we're renowned for the Berg River canoe marathon also. And the quality, I can tell you that this is one of the council's priorities. It's a critical priority for us to maintain the standard of good quality standard within the Berg River.
Water is a critical issue for us. We are large users of water at farm level. And water quality is very important because we are measured to certain standards that's imposed on us by the EU around water quality.
Historically, the river has been a lifeline for the farmers. It is where everything starts, contributes a big part, 14% of the GDP of the Western Cape in the export industry, in the export market. So yes, the Berg River as an economic activity is very important to the farming community.
In the Berg River catchment area we have very specific environmental concerns as well. Water quality in the river is very low. There's a lot of things that pollute the water, whether it's agriculture, domestic or industrial processes. And the ecology of the system is very important and of concern to us as well. It's all very well building dams, but the water has to flow in the rivers and the water has to be accessible, it has to be of good quality.
As an organization, we work with farm women, and what we found is that in most cases, woman lives on a specific farm, and sometimes they get water from a river or even from the dams on the farms, and in most cases they are affected by whereby the river gets polluted, and women's health are affected where they get diarrhea.
I think an area that is of certainly of major concern is that of water weeds. So we have a number of aquatic species that have become invasive. Many of them, fortunately, have been able to be controlled with biological control agents, so with the natural enemies of the plants, and that's a very cost-effective way of doing it because the species will be here for a long period of time and we'll be able to keep those species under control. But certain of the species are more difficult to control, and the biggest one, of course, is water hyacinth.
One of the stresses on the river is increasing population growth caused by in-migration, and this has led to increasing demand in water, unsustainable land use change, and the degradation of ecosystem services. Insufficient sanitation and informal settlements is one of the leading causes in the degradation in water quality in the river.
If you take government, even local government, you take small businesses, you take farms, you take the local people on the ground, I do think it's the link that links everyone together does not really get any attention, and there's no body that really connects everyone that can form a basis of a discussion platform.
Western Cape is particularly susceptible to the projections that we've had of climate change, in that it looks like it's going to be drying, and there's a very high demand for water in the Western Cape, or specifically around the Cape Town region, mainly for the inhabitants of the city. There's a growing population of domestic water requirement is quite high. Then there's industrial water requirement for manufacturing and for economic growth in that sector. And then over 50% of the water is used for agriculture in the Berg River catchment area, for example. And this agriculture is very important for the economy of the Western Cape.
We're looking at climate change impacts across both our own operations and also our supply chain as being a key risk for us going forward. And we need to look at adapting particularly the practices on farms to make sure they are resilient to changes in rainfall, to weather events that might become more frequent as well.
And there are certainly some species that are not invasive right now, in particular habitats that will almost certainly become invasive as climate change. It will be the trigger that unlocks the invasion. You also have indigenous species that are going to start moving out of what were the natural distribution ranges, and they in turn might become local invasive species on top of the well-known focus on bush encroachment.
I think farmers are already affected by climate change. We have farms there which 5 years ago was farmed dry land, which now you can't farm dry land anymore. You have to irrigate, puts more pressure on the river systems. We have to allocate our crops differently. We have to plan differently. Vineyards that can grow up to 100, 200 years old now only reach ages of 60 years old, and it's an old vineyard. You have to replace it every time you have to move up. So it does have a direct influence on climate change.
One of our key adaptation programs is our Farming for the Future program in the produce side of our business now, so in horticulture and wine, and really trying to look at making the farm process or the farming process more efficient and resilient against changes in weather, against more scarce water resources, and also managing our impacts on biodiversity.
The single most cost-effective intervention is demand-side management. So to get people to use water more efficiently than they are doing. And that's a very simple and cost-effective thing to do, and really surprising that we haven't managed to do more along those lines than we have. The second most cost-effective thing is the management of a catchment, and specifically within that, the control of invasive alien plants.
Every stakeholder has an important role to play towards preserving the river, and it is more important to create partnerships in order to find innovative solutions for existing problems and to move towards sustainable water resources management.